All right, here we go. Ice the One. How are you doing today?
It's good. It's good.
Thank you for coming by to the Lens of Yashu. Just wondering, everything's all set for you so far? Like, you had a good day so far?
Yeah, I'm grinding for sure, but it's been good. Minus it's cold out here, but yeah, it's a dope space. Chilling on this couch,
All right, I feel you. So I just want to start it off first by saying, you grew up in Toronto, right?
Yeah, I grew up in Toronto. Yeah, I moved here from Newfoundland when I was young. Yeah.
Sure. And so the neighborhood or the area that you lived by, was it big for music at the time, or was it in terms of being an industry city, or just as a community at the time?
Downtown area, but always usually the east side of Toronto, northeast. But yeah, it kind of depended on each area, Moss Park, I feel like, and certain different areas of Scarborough kind of influenced my music more than others, just in the sense of we'd be outside freestyling with the homies, or it kind of started too with just poetry, going to some of the marches and rallies and standing up for the injustices that were kind of happening in our community, and learning that we could have a voice, and kind of how to hone in on that craft. So, and at the time it was hip hop was really, I feel starting to bubble in the city in a different way. So, but I was still learning a lot about the culture in general, listening to records and learning how to dub tapes, and to the East Coast sometimes as well. But I got fam out there, so my family is Italian and immigrated through Nova Scotia. So so basically, always kind of downtown east side, but really for me, I always loved music in general, just all kinds of different music, listening to my grandmother's records, and dancing. That was always I just always loved to dance music. So it kind of just, the progression was just kind of a natural thing, and then aligning myself with friends who were kind of into similar stuff, as far as just creating. So yeah, I was blessed as far as that, to have just to see that around me and reflected around me.
Yeah, I know what you mean. So just getting back into the second question, what was your musical background and history like, and what made you decide on wanting to become a rapper and singer-songwriter?
Yeah, so basically, I just kind of always had a love for music, even though my parents weren't musical, but my grandparents had their record players, and so listening to old jazz, and even just Ella Fitzgerald and Billie Holiday and all that type of stuff growing up. And I guess it was just a natural progression, really, in the sense of, as I got a bit older, I was always kind of just doing it for fun, singing, rapping with my friends or whatever, or hustling. We do it outside sometimes, hustle for change, whatever. But in high school, I feel that's when I really kind of took it a little more seriously, in the sense of just rapping, in the sense of we'd be having ciphers at school, so I'd want to come correct, and to rep your set, rep your ends, so
I know what you mean.
it was that, and then singing as well, and just really, for me, music was just a form of expression, but also a way to express things that you may not normally do with your actual words, as far as talking, you know what I mean? I wasn't always the best at expressing myself necessarily through dialogue, speaking, but when it came to putting it into a song or in an artistic way, it was an outlet for me to take all that energy and do something positive than something negative, because I was doing that too, but it was finding the balance,
Sure, I know what you mean. And I think just even with your music, I know that you said that that you've listened to Billie Holiday and Elvis Costello back in your household. What artists or genres were you mainly influenced by, besides rap and I guess with old R&B? And in the future, would you work with any artists someday?
Yeah, besides like hip hop and R&B, obviously like Mary, Missy, all those people were big influences on me. Janis Joplin was a big influence, Jimi Hendrix, even Frank Sinatra. Like, I guess, you know, just the way that they could emote freely through song inspired me to you know, kind of speak my truth within that storytelling. So yeah, I mean, I'm always open to, you know, collaborating with artists that inspire me, and definitely kind of push the boundaries of, you know, inside the box, you know what I mean? Because I feel like I'm that type of person anyway, so I always am kind of drawn more towards people that kind of step out of those margins, or push the idea of what, you know, a rapper should be or a singer should be. And I never really fit into those boxes, and I feel like a lot of times people, when they don't understand things, they want to kind of put it in a box so it's easier for them to digest or understand. But at the same time, it's like you just gotta do you regardless, you know.
I know what you mean. And just like with your recent tape, like In the Paint, it's actually like I was doing like a whole like Canadian like artist like binge lately on Spotify, so I've been listening to mainly Canadian acts and like mainly people from Toronto too, and like you were like in my playlist as well. So like when I was like listening to like In the Paint too, like the first song I've heard was Chicago, like from the YouTube video back in August of last year, but I started to like listen to it more lately, and like there's like a unique concept towards it, you know, just with the basketball references and everything else too. So tell me more about the creative process about it and what inspired you to make the project.
Yeah, In the Paint was really a labor of love. Like it was one of those things where I hadn't put out a full project in a while. Like I had done a lot of mixtapes and just like Lucy's and stuff, and yeah, I just felt like it was time again to you know, have a whole body of work. And you know, I was grateful also to have, you know, my fam with me. Like Junia-T is someone I've known since high school, and we finally just really got to pretty much just go in on a tape. He produced most of the joints, and then Fresh Kils, who's like my bestie to this day, he did a couple of joints, and it was just like really getting back to the basics. Like we just had fun with it. It was just like back to what made us fall in love with music in the first place. Like forget the business, forget all that other stuff for a minute, and just like be in the lab and just have fun with it. And that's really how most of those tracks came about. Like every time it was a different mood, a different vibe. But when it's kind of just letting all your preconceived thoughts about what, oh, this song should be this, or we're writing this specifically, or more just like being in the present, you know what I mean, and letting it just flow naturally.
Yeah, I know what you mean too. And I think just even like with concept to concept too, I mean, it kind of like fits perfectly for the project. And like even just having Junia-T, who's worked with like Jesse Reyes before in the past and with other acts too, like it's actually quite interesting too. And just knowing your relationship with Junia and Fresh Kils from back in high school, and just like with Fresh being your best friend, like tell me more about like working with them like for this project, and how you managed to work with them and like forming that musical like relationship, like once after high school or once like after like the friendship.
Yeah, the funny thing is, me and Junes originally met at IC Visions, which was like pre-remix. Our boy Gavin was actually close to here, like deep West End, and they had a stew, and I was deep East them times, and so Saga mans and then a bunch of us East Side mans like linked there, and them times it was like Pops and like all like rich kid mans from like, that was really the first like link up when we were still teenagers. And then from there it just, you know, progressed. So that was really the first time I feel like me and Junes really got to like sit down and go in on kind of just a vibe. And also we always were kind of drawn to similar sounds as far as music, timeless music with a lot of soul and substance to it. You know, something that you could play, you could make it now, but you could still, 10 years from now, it still bumps. 5 years, you know what I'm saying? It doesn't lose that authenticity. or the genuine, you know, overall vibe of the music itself. So that was really a dope process, just to kind of cultivate each other and incubate those ideas in a safe space, in a space where you feel supported, where you kind of thrive off each other, and the whole energy transference that happens. So yeah, and then with Kils, you know, he was always kind of like going off on his MP, and I'd always be rapping or singing, and you know, we had performed and stuff before, but it was like, let's just actually just like get on a vibe. And it's crazy because there's so many, you know, tracks that we still have that we didn't necessarily put on the tape, because the tape, you know, you kind of want to have a curated body of songs that kind of work with each other. So there was still songs that were dope that just didn't necessarily suit that vibe, that we still have, that we'll probably just put out as Lucy's or as like a side project. But I think that's the joy of doing it with people that are in line with kind of your vision and your standard of quality of work as well. It's like, you know, it doesn't feel like work at all. It's just like, you know, it's fun. Like the whole time me and Kils did those joints, Full Time Lover and Reach, you know, it was like, and those I feel like were definitely classics off In the Paint. And we were both going through similar things at the time, and it was kind of just like, you know what I mean, vibing on a beat, and it was like, but you know, we're both going through it, so you know those ones where you're like, yeah, you know what I'm saying? And same with Chi-Town and June's, like, we're both in our feelings and like going through it. So it's like, you know, it's like,
I know what you mean. I know what you mean. Just like kind of like that whole like classic Jay-Z and like Timbaland like studio session, where like Timbaland, he was like bobbing to like the style with Jay, like bobbing his head either way too. Like it kind of had like that same feeling as well.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Like you don't even need to say it. It's like, yup, okay, bet.
I think like what set In the Paint different from other projects that I've listened to was like the cover art, you know, in a way too. And like I had to like research some parts of the cover art, you know, just to make sure like everything was right in a way. So I think it had the 1999 game of like the Raptors versus like the Timberwolves, the HMV import stamp that you would get from like HMV for like old CDs, and then I think with the Above the Rim inspired like logo too. Tell me more about the inspiration idea and the idea beyond the cover art in a way.
Yeah, I mean, shout out to your attention to detail on the cover. Yeah, Bronze, who's the homie, did the artwork. Bronze is super fire, BBRC, Notes to Self. So we flipped, actually I believe it's the 1996 All-Star game, from like kind of a flip on the Slam mag. But yeah, basically, you know, the Above the Rim flip, of course, because that movie was, I feel like, impacted a lot of us growing up. Just from the soundtrack to the whole like combining ball with, you know what I mean, and everything. There's so much in that movie that really impacted a lot of us. So the flip, I grew up playing basketball my whole life, so you know, In the Paint kind of came from that idea of, you know, going hard, just leaving it all out on the floor, leave your inhibitions behind type thing. So yeah, really just living in the moment. And Bronze, when we kind of sat down and chopped it up about the idea, we had talked a lot about the nostalgic ball, because he's a ball head too, so all that NBA Jam, all the stuff that we kind of grew up with. And so we went back and forth, and yeah, like the concept was super dope. And the tape, the HMV, because if y'all remember that, some of us do, some of us don't, but that was the HMV import. Was like, you got those ones, you felt nice. So yeah, and then Sotomayor on the back of the tape, of course, because he, you know, Mighty Mouse was someone when we first got our team, that it was like, dang, you know, for a long time, you know, growing up, we never had a team. So when we finally did, it was like epic to finally say that we had our own team. But yeah, and even just the whole culture of, I feel like ball and music, especially hip hop and like R&B, always just, for me, went hands in hand. It was kind of like, you know, how we grew up, and the influences and the kind of, even the OGs that we kind of looked up to growing up. It was like, always that combination, you know, and obviously the clothes, like everything, you know, that we always were drawn to, that the throwback jerseys, the, you know, so yeah, it was really dope to see it come to life in that way, and that's kind of what led to calling it In the Paint, because I was like, yeah, you know what, we're going hard in the paint, and it's just
it's your time and all that.
yeah, you know.
Yeah, I know what you mean. And I think like what makes you different from all like the other artists in Toronto is just, I think, just kind of your direction into looking into like new sounds and new styles, and like influencing like various concepts of love and various concepts of like nonchalance and just, you know, excitement to like other songs too and other projects. Like I've never seen like a Toronto-based artist like do mainly an NBA inspired like album cover and work with like two unique producers like in a way too, and like even like shoot like a music video like in a different like city other than like Toronto or like Niagara Falls or Dubai. But it's interesting.
Yeah, the Chi-Town video was actually, it was cool that I shot some of it in Chi-Town with my homies from the Remix project. They have an office there, so we shot some of it there, and then came back here, had the drone, so we were like, yeah, let's mess with the drone, and that was cool. And shout out Chris Ack, who's also like a brother of mine from time, and he pretty much does all my video stuff with me. So yeah, that was really fun. And then just messing with some of the CGI stuff that we just started to kind of scratch the surface with it, and now we're kind of in the bag with it. But yeah, it was the beginning of that, and just it's kind of like with each video, you know, it's you bring something new to the table, you learn a new skill, you know, technology is changing. So it was really interesting with Chi-Town to bring those things together and shoot on a bunch of different locations. You know, is really dope putting it all together in the end.
True. And for Chi-Town, I guess like it's like an ode to the city like in the song, or would it be like a different like aspect like for the song? And also in Chicago, did you also like do some sightseeing there while you worked on the music video?
Yeah, I mean, I love Chicago, man. It's like, you know, always holds a special place in my heart. So yeah, I've been there numerous times, and every time, definitely I always try and take in, you know, they have really dope jazz, blues clubs. It's a foodie city, so I'm Italian, so I'm always there for the foodie vibes. It's a gorgeous city. The way the canals, especially in the summer, the canals and the waterways just go through the city. So sometimes I would just take the boat. There's like a boat that just goes through, and you just get on a vibe and just like write. And other creative friends of mine that live there who make music, who, you know, do film. It's always dope to collaborate. I definitely have some songs in the works with some Chicago producers and artists as well. So yeah, that time in particular, yeah, we went, I believe it was summer, so we were like, we just went out there with the camera and like did our thing, took the whole day, just walked around, went to a bunch of different spots. And so yeah, that was really interesting too, like to see it from that type of view, where it's like you're a tourist because you don't live there, but the architecture as well is like just stunning in general, because it has so much history in Chicago. The old buildings, like it's compared to Toronto, which is, you know, a newer city in that sense. It's just the scale of things is so different. You know, it's almost like New York in the sense of like you just feel overwhelmed by these massive buildings, and so it was a combination of an ode to Chicago itself, because I like Toronto, it's so diverse, and you know, there's a lot of Italians in Chicago as well, so there's a long history of that there too. Little Italy and all that. But also just, you know, different love interests I've had in Chi-Town, and so, you know, I speak on that in the track too. Is like it ain't all roses, but you know, you go through it. I don't regret any of those experiences. It was just, you know, you're young, sometimes you go through trials and tribulations of the heart, and it's like you just got to get it off your chest sometimes to move past and heal.
Yeah,
you know
what you mean. And I guess like with the food in Chicago too, like you've had like, I guess, Harold's and Uncle Remus, or what else did you had?
There's a couple spots, I don't remember the exact names, but there's a few spots on like there's a street basically where Little Italy is, kind of like downtown, where it's like, obviously, you know, for me, my favorite there is like obviously the pasta and stuff like that, but they're also like southern cooking there is fire. Like there's a couple of blues and jazz clubs. I don't remember the names off the top of my head, but it's like there's a strip of like a bunch of them, and they all have like crazy ribs and mac and cheese and like all that soul food that you're just like, damn, that's not really popping like that here. Like I know there's spots here, but you really have to like go out of your way to find that here. Whereas there, it's like the one street is really just music vibes. The whole, it's like amazing live musicians where like every spot is popping, you know. I mean, I don't know with COVID now, but for a while it's like it had that a little bit of a Bourbon Street vibe, you know, which is really dope.
Yeah, true. I never been to Chicago, but like I could definitely recommend, if you do go back to like going to Harold's or Uncle Remus or Michael Jordan Steakhouse or like Giordano's, like those four are like pretty much essential if you want to try the essential like Chicago food, like chicken with mild sauce, deep dish pizza, and even like steak from like Michael Jordan's Steakhouse too. Like
yeah. I was lucky to have friends being like, yo, this is a spot, let's like, so I was always like in good company as far as they knew the spots to kind of say, yeah, let's go, versus me just like wandering around, which I do too, but sometimes it's hit and miss with that. It's just like, you know, but yeah, for sure.
So you've worked with HeyBombay on a couple of tracks, including Call Me Daddy and Hold You Down. Tell me more about those tracks in general, like even with working with HeyBombay, and if possible, are you working on a new project soon, like with him or not?
Yeah, so Call Me Daddy was mad fun. That was like just a Lucy we did in the spring, and Swanky, Octavio Santos is someone who I've worked a lot with. Put his horns on that, his trumpet, so, and he did a bunch of joints on In the Paint as well, the trumpet work. So yeah, Call Me Daddy, that was just a vibe. Like Bombay had sent it to me, I think I was up north, and I was just like, yeah, you know what? I was like, let's just go in. And I hit Swanky, I was like, B, you gotta put your sauce on this. And you know, Swanky's always down, so he's like, yeah, I got you. And then yeah, that was, and then from there it kind of went into Hold You Down, which, you know, Swanky again put his sauce on it, and Kils mixed that joint, and it was just kind of like, Hold You Down was just more of kind of like a vulnerable space in the sense of, you know, okay, like sometimes we all, you know, have moments where you're like, you're talking to somebody and you're like, could I be with this person, you know, could I build with this person? And it's kind of like thinking out loud, like you want to hold them down, but you're kind of processing in your mind like what that would look like, but you don't necessarily want to stop talking to them either. So it's like sometimes you gotta, you know what I mean, you gotta poop or get off the pot, so to say, you know what I'm saying? But yeah, so that was kind of like, it was a super chill vibe, but it was just a bop. It was kind of like, I feel like a lot of us were in a similar mind space too, in the sense of when I was writing it, you know, it's like as you always find love in different ways, and I feel like with every person it's different. So when you have that relationship and you're trying to navigate that, it's never easy. It's always, you know, it's not black and white, it's always like a gray area. Just more so just to trust your intuition and follow your heart, you know, where it takes you. And so yeah, from there it was Go-Go was kind of another collaboration with Bombay and Swanky that was, you know, kind of like, okay, now we got that in the bag, like, all right, like we're feeling good with the crew, you know. Also that joint is more about stop and smell the roses, you know. It's like we work so hard, and it's like sometimes you want to take those moments to celebrate and be like, yeah, you know what, like, and a song that reflects that. Sometimes you do just want to dance and turn up and have a good time, you know. So it's nice to have that balance of, you know, we can go to a serious track, or, you know, a more vulnerable emotional track, to a, you know, turn up, have fun track, feel good. And I feel like that speaks a lot to the album. So MON-STAR is coming out 2021, and that it's gonna be 10 tracks. So Hold You Down will be on that Go-Go, and we have a few more singles we're rolling out in the next few months. So yeah, and you know, Bombay produced those joints. Swanky's on a bunch of them. I got Anthony Rinaldi, who's an amazing saxophone player, on a couple of those joints. And then Kils on the mix, Mariana on the master. So yeah, it was just like a fam jam, really. Like, it was really dope to have everyone you know, involved that have been rocking from the beginning, and you know, to see the evolution in all of us, like, you know, from Bombay with just experimenting with different sounds, and even me just with lyrics and extending, you know, my capacity as a writer, as a storyteller. It's been really dope to see the growth in all of us, and I feel like MON-STAR is, you know, a time capsule of that. It's like, you know, the evolution of all of us. But again, it was really having fun. Like with this project, most of the time we were in the studio together, just like freestyling. Most of the tracks came from a freestyle, and then I either penned them later, or we just like went with what we had. And same with Bombay, like we just mess around with songs. We'd all start messing around with little sounds in the studio. You know, sometimes Swanky was there, or we'd send him the track after, kind of thing. But it was always like a super, just real, like organic process that wasn't overthought. It was just like being present, literally, like emoting as it was happening. And I feel like for me as a writer, you know, when you're, you know, starting out, it's like, okay, you sit down, you pen something, or you're just freestyling, whatever. But to me, I feel like a lot of the artists that I looked up to as well growing up, and just for me in my evolution as you know, a writer, is the sense of being able to emote it when it's happening. Because for me, I feel like a lot of that time, that's usually the best in the sense of you're capturing that. Like, it's cool, you can pen stuff, but to me, when I first hear something, I usually try to either just freestyle with it and chop it up later, or immediately just do something with it, because whatever that first thing is usually like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no,
so
true.
And there's joints I've penned or whatever, but you know, that was really on this project particular something that I was conscious about, that as soon as we get it popping, it's like boom, this is the melody, this is the hook, this is whatever, and it, you know, it speaks for itself in the music, I really feel like, with this project. So
yeah, and I think, you know, being like one of like the more unique female artists like in Toronto, just like even like with the rise in Canada's like hip hop industry too, like even with you and other notable female Canadian like rappers making some noise in the scene, especially in Toronto, how do you feel about the female rap scene in Toronto or Canada in general, and do you feel like it's much similar in America with the support, or would you say that it's different in a way?
I feel like we just don't have the support in the way that the States does as far as our artists. I feel like just numbers wise, we don't have, I don't think, we have the resources, but I do think, we have a tremendous amount of talent in Toronto specifically, but in the country as well. But Toronto, and I feel like for so many years we went overlooked and, you know, just like brushed off, until you have artists now that really blew up, and people are kind of paying attention to the dot more, which I feel like is a long time coming. There was artists doing it from time that never really got the shine, but it's really dope to see people, you know, getting to that level worldwide. And you know, I think the infrastructure needs to be, you know what I mean, like just revamped completely. I feel like Toronto and Canada in general, just the support for artists, especially when it comes to like labels and like all this other stuff, it just was never really there, and it's still not. You know, I think that's why a big reason why a lot of artists have to leave and blow up somewhere else, and then come back, and then they get the respect or the support from the labels or whoever, which is unfortunate because it still happens a lot. And even I can attest to that as well, like just the love you get being in Europe or in the States or other places where, you know, it's the craft itself is really appreciated and held to a standard of respect and support, so artists can continue to do what they do. And yeah, I really feel like, I think Toronto's becoming more aware of it, but I still feel like we have a good ways to go. But the more artists from here that keep leveling up and doing their thing wherever, however, by any means, the better, because the talent's been here. It's just people just didn't see it like that. If you're in it, I feel like a lot of us creatives, period, not just music, but I think if you're in the scene in Toronto, you kind of know how much fire is here, period. But it's just like, you know what I mean? It's kind of like just the rest of the world kind of understanding it, and us building ourselves to have those platforms here to, you know what I mean, build each other up to those levels that we need to be at, you know, as far as infrastructure, you know what I mean?
All right. So how do you feel about the Toronto music scene in a way? Like, I know that you said it's more about the support that might be like an issue here and there too, and just making it in like other different parts, but I don't know if you feel that there should be some changes on the direction of where the Toronto music scene should go to, or if you feel that it's at a better place right now than it would be.
Yeah, I feel like we're probably in a better place than we have been probably ever, as far as you know, opportunities, and obviously like social media changed that a lot across the board. I feel like, I mean, minus COVID, because that's a whole other conversation for artists, but right now I just think, you know, more you know, arts spaces too as well that support artists. Like, you know, there's been a few recent ones, but I think moving forward from COVID, a lot of things have closed down. So it's like, how are we gonna have, you know, spaces that are accessible for artists, whether it's studios or, you know, creative spaces that can be those hubs for artists, and, you know, aren't don't demand, like, you know, that a lot of, you know, spaces right now as it is, you know, you have to pay a lot for studio time, you gotta pay for all this stuff, and that's what it is. But when I go other places and I've seen the way that they have a lot of, you know, incubators that are there for the artists, and just like ways to help sustain the art and the culture of the city, then I feel like Toronto has such a rich, you know, diverse culture and music scene in general. There's so much different influences and just vibes. That's what makes Toronto so dope, I feel like, too. And anyone who's from here or has come here kind of knows that. It's just, I think, elevating our artists to be seen, you know, in other places as well, to get on that level where everyone's self-sustainable and can really, you know, make a full living off their craft, not have to kind of, you know, have one foot out or have 10 hustles or have 20 hustles, where it's like they could just take all their time and focus it on what they do best, you know. And I know that's part of an independent artist, is like, you kind of got to wear 10 hats, you got to do a lot of stuff at once, and I know that's part of the game. But I think, you know, Toronto itself, just thinking of more ways that, you know, we can support independent artists as well. And even artists I know that are signed don't feel like they have that type of support from the label, or, you know, they've signed contracts that they're not happy with, and just like even understanding that, the business side of things. But, you know, I mean, there's places like Remix and Launchpad. There are spots where, you know, that can happen for young people, and there's more of that happening. But I think it's a process, you know, it's a process in the sense that I feel like a lot of this is new for Toronto in that sense, whereas other cities like New York or Chicago, they've had that happening for so long, and they've had that, you know, kind of foundation, whereas Toronto is younger in that sense. So I think they're still figuring out a lot of how that would look and how that would work out, especially now after, you know, the pandemic situation. But in general, you know, we're blessed in a lot of ways as well to be in this city where we do have access to each other, to so many different, you know, influences in general, because like I feel like that's what speaks to a lot of our music too. It's like when you hear, you know, anyone, Junes, Bombay, me, it's like all of that. We grew up with so many different cultures around us and friends, and it was just like all that influenced us, you know. So I think that's why a lot of Toronto artists, when people from away hear the music, they're like, oh, like they can't really put it in one genre necessarily, right? It's not like, oh, that's just hip hop, or oh, you know, even with the MON-STAR tape, it's not necessarily just hip hop or just R&B. It's like a fusion of all the things we came up with, you know.
Yeah.
So it's like I feel like people from Toronto get that, but when you're trying to explain it to other people, they're like, well, it's not really, but then you sing and you rap, and it's like, yeah, but that's just what it is, because I feel like we had to be versatile. And I think coming up in Toronto, because there wasn't a lot of opportunity, there was this whole kind of like crabs in a bucket cage mentality too, where it was like, you know, a lot of times the OGs weren't necessarily trying to bring us up with them. It was like, because things were scarce, it was kind of more like, no, we're gonna keep our links to ourselves, we're gonna keep that to ourselves, and like y'all figure it out on your own. You know. And I think for us now, being, you know, kind of being that, coming up to that with the younger people that we kind of mentor and you know, work with, we're trying to show them, we're always trying to show them what we know and kind of bring them with us, and the opposite, because we know how it feels to come up and have you know what I mean, it's just like feel like you're hitting a brick wall because you had those 1-2 people. But in general, and I'm not even mad at those people, because I get it, they probably felt like, damn, there is only so much to go around, I gotta hold on to mine, I can't really put you on, you know. But I think that's changing now, that it's opening up for the city, that I think people's minds are changing a bit. And I know for me and my, you know, squad of people, that we really are conscious of that, you know, and always try and like spread that knowledge and share that, because it's like, one, like we're all in this together, we're all in it from the same city, especially in our own neighborhoods too. Like it's that type of like scarcity mentality is, we're just you know what I mean, it's, that's done, like, you know what I mean, like just keep it moving. And it's like, I think that's one thing that I'm starting to see a shift with the younger generation coming up too, and also just the whole vibe in the city. I feel like there's more camaraderie than there was in the past, and more of that just allyship happening in the movement in general, which is nice to see. It's a positive thing, I feel like.
I know what you mean, and definitely, like, I 100% agree. I really don't really say it as much, in my opinion, based on it, but I think the two things that are kind of making the Toronto scene like more weakened in a way, or like not as the same as it used to be, it would be the allocation of funds like within SOCAN and like Factor, as well as like still trying to have like that whole niche sound towards Toronto. And with the first one, I'm not gonna lie, allocation of funds for SOCAN and just like even for Factor 2, just getting money for grant money just to make music too, like it's a lot of things that artists usually need in order to make their music too. And I do feel like it's a pick and choose situation on which artists deserve more money than others. And it actually happened recently too, like in a Twitter post, that Grimes, who's like married to Elon Musk, received $100,000 from SOCAN for, I think, an artist's like specialty, or a general like artist like specialty for music. And that 100K supposedly went to Elon Musk for some reason too, and it kind of like cost an uproar too. And I'm not gonna lie, like it is questionable too, because that 100K could be split into like 10 or 20K to like maybe one artist or like 5 artists or so, and they could have used that to make a music video or like a project or whatever else is needed too. And even with this whole like niche sound too, I think Toronto just needs to get out of that whole Drake, Weekend, Tory Lanez type sound and move on to a new thing that other people should look for too. And it can only happen to some people here and there too, and like in some cases too, the only thing that could remove that type of sound is like Toronto street rap, where you've noticed like an influx of violence and politics going on too. So I think in other cases too, like the only people who have hit like a mainstream break that didn't have to use those two types of sounds in a way is like Toby, who recently made it off with his project and has worked with like the game and everyone else too. Like, I don't know if you would agree with that or if you think it would be kind of different.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a really exciting time to see, you know, a lot of the art and creatives coming up right now. Like, just even recently with the Polaris, you know, because June's was, you know, on the list for that, and it really made me pay attention to it in a different way. I feel like Jesse, like, enough of the homies were on that list, and it was just one. Toby, like a lot of artists that are coming out of the city and just doing really dope music, and it's nice to see some people, one, getting the credit that they should have been getting from time, you know, and also just like that lens, that scope that they have on them, the eyes they have on them now. But I think it's a good start, but you know, we still have a long way to go. But at the same time, it's exciting in the sense that I feel like a lot of this happening now is like trailblazing in a way, right? Like, it's blazing the path for those coming up next, coming up after us. Those are in it, those of us that are in it right now. Because one thing's for sure, I feel like Toronto always being viewed as the underdog, coming up as like kind of always the underdog to, you know, New York or Chi-Town or all our counterparts that we grew up listening to back when we didn't even have access, and you'd have to listen to WBLK and Buffalo Radio and on Detroit to even hear certain tunes. You'd have mans slipping you up tapes from the States since we couldn't even get the music here, you feel me? So like, we always had that underdog kind of mentality. So one thing I feel like it made us super resourceful, because we've always been that by any means we're gonna do it, and that's a lot of the times what we've all done, whether we had support from whoever, you know what I mean? It was like, we found a way, no matter what that meant, we did it, you know what I mean? And I think that speaks to the resilience and the strength of our city, but also more so the creatives that have you know, built the culture of the music scene, you know, without nothing, and just like, yo, we're gonna do it regardless, you know. And I feel like a lot of that hard work and blood, sweat, and tears is coming into fruition for a lot of artists, you know, that have kind of put in that 10,000 hours, and now it's like, whether they want to hear it or not, or believe it or not, it's happening. So you know what I mean? It's like
yeah, I know what you mean. I just have these last three questions. I'll just do them like kind of like randomly. So if you so one of the signature traits about you is your sports-inspired attire, from jerseys to like from basketball jerseys to baseball jerseys and MLB gear and such, and like Letterman's too. So are you like a big like NBA Raptors fan in a sense? And how did you feel about the Raptors like winning the championship like last year?
Yo, that was lit. Like, me and Kils were talking about that last night. It was just like, man, we both cried. We were both just like, we were at the Drake Underground, funny enough. He had a show, I think he was doing The Hustle with our boy Dramago, and it was like, we had them stream the game at the spot, because we're like, or else, you know. So, but we literally, the show stopped, everyone ran out into the streets on Queen Street. It was crazy. It was like, man, but a lot of us cried that night, because it was just like 25 years of us just like taking so many L's, and it was like, yo, we did it, like, you know, that was lit. And I had my Mitchell and Ness Raptors jacket on that night, because I was like, I gotta be ready, you know what I'm saying? So the throwback gear for sure, like jerseys, obviously I have a Blue Jays jersey on right now, but the throwback jerseys, just because I always played ball my whole life, so, you know, I always just loved, I was always in ball gear, period. If I wasn't at the studio, I was playing ball. So Jays, all of that. So it's like, that is just something natural to me, that it was always part of me. So to kind of keep that theme, you know, throughout music, cover art, videos, it was a natural, you know, kind of combination. So yeah, and I mean, regardless what happens, we got our chip. Period.
Yeah,
Anyone can
true.
say what they want,
True.
but we got our chip.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I know what you mean. It went from winning the championship like 2 years ago to Braun having a super team like just with this year, or like the last basketball season, and now to having just kind of like having your starting three like Raptors players, because I think everyone got traded like to different teams. I heard Gasol was supposed to be waived to Barcelona, but I don't know if he's still doing that or if he's gonna continue on with the Lakers contract. So how do you like feel about that right now?
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna be honest. It was sad to, you know, that we couldn't defend that championship with the same team. Like, I know a lot of people were disappointed, like, that we didn't at least try and defend it once after that. You know what I'm saying? I don't even know if that's ever happened in NBA history, to be honest. That, you know, we all know Kawhi left, and you know, but I know we were all trying to just put that out of our minds when we won, and the streets were rammed. We were at Dundas Square, like, just like for the parade. It was crazy, and it was like, it was surreal that it was we were living it instead of watching it every year, someone else's city, someone else's team, like that we were, and we're all grown enough to enjoy it. Be out on the streets, you know what I'm saying?
True.
Be up in the bar celebrating pre-COVID, which is also a big plus that happened when it did. You know what I mean? But yeah, I mean, that was hard. It was really hard to have that and to not feel like we did our best to at least try and defend it once. But I mean, what can you do, right? It's like the Raptors' history of bad decisions when it comes to a lot of bad decisions as far as players or just not putting up the type of bread that we need to keep and have certain players is just a reality. So moving forward, you know, I hope that we can rebuild and one day get another chip. But for now, I'm like, you know what? The fact that we were alive to see this, I'm just like, RIP. There's a lot of homies that weren't even here to see it. So, you know.
I know what you mean. So if you were to have like a top 5 all-time favorite like NBA team and players, how would your list be?
That's a hard question. But I feel like definitely MJ. David Robinson I was a big Spurs fan, still am, but growing up Spurs, especially even before we had a team. Duncan was always a big favorite of mine. I really like Penny Hardaway. Penny Hardaway growing up. Man, it's so hard. Larry Johnson was someone I really liked growing up too. Grandmama, you know. It's so hard to pick 5. It's so hard because I feel like certain players really have that connection to a time of your life, like a period of your life. So like there was a lot of players that you grew up with as a kid, but then they were gone maybe by the time you were an adult. So you kind of had to grow into other players, you know. Like for me as a kid, MJ hands down was just like, and I think for a lot of us from that era, you know, not only was it just about basketball, but it was also, he changed the game as far as what an athlete looked like, endorsements, all the things that were never done. You know, he really like blew those doors open. You know, that was also too, like that hope. A lot of us that didn't have anything was just like looking at MJ like, damn, you know, then we can all do it. You know, we ain't got shit, but hey, you know what? Like, as long as one of us got it, some of us got it, you know, like,
no doubt. For me, I would have to say, in terms of players, I'd go with Jordan, just mainly for all the reasons that could be explained by either me and you. Kobe, just as far as him reinventing like the 3-point shoot and just having a legacy, just to be with like different types of people to show that he's consistent, to show that he cares, to even like adapting to his style and understanding. Allen Iverson, like AI, like
yeah,
mainly in the
sure.
sense of fashion
Yeah,
and just
yeah.
determination and consistency. Like you're not gonna have a player like AI, even for someone who didn't get like a ring and just
Yup.
have been just being consistent. I don't know if he had a ring by any chance, but I think
I don't think so. Yeah. Keep it going.
because he was like mad consistent for like many years too, just even like to losing it to like what Ben Wallace, like in that was kind of like crazy too in a way. Also like Will to Chamberlain too, like Chamberlain, like I think he just defined the game in like his own aspect too, and just being like a working man, just being consistent like with his style too. Like you can never really define it. And I know like people are gonna be mad at this, but I would say Durant would also be in the top 5 too. I think just with his strength and consistency and just like never failing to give up too, like in a way too, and to him like even receiving his chip back in like 2017, because I think 2018 actually, because 2017 he was in a different team, like 2018 with the Warriors too, like he came a long way just from playing like back in like his old high school games to playing with the OKC Thunder till now. Like you have to give like Durant his like flowers too either way. I know people would say LeBron, but I feel like LeBron would have to prove himself more to be durable in all aspects too, like especially if he would want to do something like maybe in Chicago, like bring the ring like to Chicago with like Derrick Rose as well. Like that could be a way.
Yeah, I mean it's hard because I mean Kobe for sure. There's definitely a lot of players that were influential, even Kevin Garnett, Ray Allen, all those guys, like, but definitely AI for sure. Like AI, I hear you, was one of those players that were super influential, like across the board, not just on the court, and also a small dude who had, like, you know what I mean? Like,
who had like heart in a way,
right?
Yeah.
Size-wise, for what he accomplished was madness. Like, and how hard he played in and out, like, was just astonishing. Like, yeah, he was, and even it was crazy that game, the playoff against Vince, the one that we lost to the Sixers. And Vince too. I mean, there's so many players over the years that really had an impact. But you're right, not all of them got their rings. Not all of them, got that. And I really wish AI had got one too. Yeah. I mean, the Celtics, KG and all of them got at least one with that Celtics team that year. Yeah. Spurs got a bunch. Like Kobe, like certain mans did get, but there's a lot of dudes that really played hard that unfortunately never did. But
I think with like Vince and like Pearson Garnett, I'd put them like in a top 10. I don't think that they would be top 5 in a way, because if we look at it like legacy too, like I would say like even with those 3 too, with MJ, Kobe, and AI, they've done more for legacies than like what LeBron has done, like even if he has the rings or not. If LeBron would actually bring a ring to Chicago, like that would be like probably like one of the best things that could be in like NBA history too, because even with MJ too, like he still thinks like LeBron has to prove more to prove that he is of a certain value. And I think having that chip in Chicago, like whether it would be next year or if he decides to trade from the Lakers, like that could be an astonishing thing,
Yeah, I mean, I respect LeBron for sure. I mean, the fact that he brought a ring to Cleveland is a huge boost for the city. They definitely needed that. But LA, I mean, they've already won a bag, so it is what it is. But to me, I guess ball has changed a lot too. For me, like how ball used to be, and a lot more, I feel like, hands-on, maybe rough, maybe whatever. Like those times, ball was just different to me. Like compared to now, it's still ball, but it's way more, ticky-tack fouls and this and that. It's not like a ball fight like how it used to be back in the day, So.
I know what you mean. I think just to end off with the next question, I know that you've talked about your music and such on like what's going to be released soon, but do you have other plans for the end of the month and starting next year too? And do you have any like final words that you would like to say for any creative or any person out there pursuing their dreams?
Yeah, so as far as music, me and Bombay are going to be dropping some singles, just loosies that we've been working on, a couple more collabs. I recently had a collab with my boy DJ Uwap in Cincinnati. Runaway was the track, but we're working on a couple more we're going to release in the next little while. So yeah, and then I have a couple other collaborations with Toronto artists, and Junia-T as well on some of his new stuff. So yeah, it's definitely moving from now to 2020 and 21, a lot of new music. We're working on some CGI visuals right now for Go-Go, which is probably going to be at the end of the month. Fucked Your Friend is the next single. First Time will be another single after that, and Albany, or I'll be on the MON-STAR tape. So yeah, I mean, and the collaborations too have been fun, like just outside of the singles and the rollout of the album. Just working with people from different countries and cities, and got some other collabs in Europe. So just kind of, you know, that cross-pollination is always good, and tapping into each other's fan bases, and just like that influence of how we just kind of, you know, working with different people kind of sparks different sides of your creativity too, sometimes even unconsciously knowing it. And I have also like an EP I'm working on as well to come out sometime probably late 2021. You know, an EP of just stuff that I've been working on myself. Some of the stuff I didn't put, it was going to be on MON-STAR, but we decided to just hold on to it, because MON-STAR had a very curated sound with those 10 tracks. But it's also some more unplugged stuff, which is kind of cool because it's something I wanted to get back to as well, like just some more acoustic vibes where, you know, stripped down vocals, guitar, sax, horns, and we were doing some visuals for that as well. So yeah, man, just having fun with it, you know, just kind of following your heart with the music. And for me, that's kind of really where I'm at right now. Whatever speaks to me is kind of where I'm letting my, you know, spirit guide me basically, and the music that's filling my cup and speaks to my soul, that's where it's kind of all coming from. And you know, I feel it's a blessed time right now, as messed up as COVID is and everything. The silver lining is I feel like it stripped away a lot of the distractions that we normally have, running around, you know, doing a million different things. We still have to do all that back end stuff as independent artists, but the flip side is with everything shut down, it's like, you know, it gives us some more time in the lab to just be there writing, creating, you know, building and strategically thinking of the next steps, and just plotting with the team, with the crew, and making those visions to a reality and come to life. So I would say to any, you know, creatives kind of on their grind, to just stay true to yourself, because I feel like there's so much pressure now to like follow a trend or follow this, or your sound should be this, or, you know, fit in a box of this. It's like, nah, because honestly, like, if there's one thing I learned, it's like, be yourself, because at the end of the day, all those things come and go. You know, music that, you know, people may feel like they're pressured into making because it is what it is right now. A lot of those tunes, you go back 5-10 years from now, ain't no one bopping those tunes, because it's not timeless music, because a lot of it didn't come from a genuine place, or it just wasn't what you were feeling, or you felt like you were forced to do it. So for me, that's kind of like, just what you feel to do it, and forget what anyone says. Like, at the end of the day, you gotta wake up and look at yourself in the mirror, not no one else. So like, do what's true to you and what makes you happy. Life is short, man. You know, like this year we've lost so many people. It's like, live in the moment, like what makes you happy, for real. Like, you know, be good to yourself, be good to others, and just, you know, do you, for real.
100%. Well, Ice the One, thank you for shedding a lot of good knowledge and a lot of experience from, you know, your music and from everything else too. And until next time as well.
Yeah, man, thanks for having me. You already know.
Sure. Until next time, peace.